Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. We do this thing for you, blah, 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 blah. What am I talking about? You know, sometimes we get our things crossed. Let me try that again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me wherever you were joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree. But whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. And if you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Now that I'm on track with what I'm supposed to be doing today, I'm flabbergasted. I am shocked, right? I'm trying. Yesterday in Georgia, if you're in Georgia, we had a runoff. We had a runoff election. And in that runoff election, I was sitting there in my mind going, why am I back voting again? Why am I voting again when there were only two real people on the ballot and one person beat the other person? Well, that's interesting because I didn't really know this. And a good friend of mine, my best friend, Jeff Dittman, who's a history guy and all about the politics, sent me a story on why the Georgia runoff system was created. So and I'm not going to read everything for you, but I'm going to credit this Washington Post article. It's Democracy in America. If you want to check it out, the author is Matthew Brown. And the title reads, Georgia's runoff system was created to dilute Black voting power. Now, here's the funny part about that, right? The system was created, the runoff system was created to dilute Black voting power. And we had two Black men running for this Senate seat. One of them, Democratic, and I'm not here to get into politics as far as my side and giving you my whatever. No. I'm just trying to tell you a perspective from someone who is a registered independent. So if you were in Georgia and you got a lot of that mail and the ads and all of that, just double it for me because I got it from both sides. But here's something that I noticed. I mean, that I learned. It says that 10 states use the runoffs in primaries, but Georgia and Louisiana, which is where my best friend lives, are the only two states that do so in general elections. Georgia's system was created in 1964 after the urging of Denmark Groover, who blamed Black voters for a re-election loss and proposed runoff. Groover later acknowledged the runoff system was intended to suppress Black political representation. Now, if you remember what happened in the elections when Raphael Warnock, who is now officially the senator, when he was elected the first time, Georgia quickly went into putting in laws and rules, things that people could not do on election day. You can no longer give people water. How ridiculous, right? They felt like being decent human beings was something that was going to sway votes. This was because Georgia has been essentially Republican for as long as Republican has been Republican. So for a Democrat to win in Georgia is astonishing, right? So Raphael Warnock wins. They put a whole bunch more rules in place. You get to this election, and instead of putting a competent, a charismatic person, someone who could really represent the Republican Party, they put Herschel Walker. And I used to love Herschel Walker as a running back. But if you've ever heard him talk, you know that he should not be in any leadership position. But the Republican Party wanted to win so badly that they said, hey, y'all like voting for black people. You'll just vote for any black person. So we'll just give you a black person. And then they went out and voted for him. They voted for him so much that there was even a need for an election. This is a former football player who undoubtedly has some type of CTE going on, who doesn't always seem to remember accurately, versus a guy who spent his life as a minister in a church that Martin Luther King built. He was the reverend of a church that Dr. King built. These people are not the same. These people are not the same. One has spent his life trying to uplift the people. The other has spent his life wanting to be accepted by a people. Guess which one did which? Guess which people they were trying to serve? It speaks to the Republicans' tenacity when it comes to winning. It's something that I 100% admire about the Republican Party. They are out there to win at every cost. They wanted to win so bad that they put Herschel Walker out there and spent millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to get him in there, and it almost worked. It almost worked. Thank goodness it didn't. I'm almost surprised it didn't, because why would you expect anything more from Georgia? People give Georgia credit for a lot of stuff, but one of the things they fail to mention is this ridiculously fractured, like split, divided nation, or state that we have. I live in Savannah, and I would tell you that while I see integration in Savannah, while I see people of all colors get along in Savannah, I also see places where they don't mess with each other. They don't rock with each other. You go to this area, it is predominantly white. You go to this area, it is predominantly black. You go to this area, you're going to find some Hispanic people. Like, it's not a whole lot of blending everywhere. If it would be like a Venn diagram. People have seen the Venn diagram, right? Here's a circle of black, here's a circle of white, here's a circle of Hispanic, here's a circle of Asian. There's some areas where there's blending of all together, but for the most part, they don't associate. They don't associate. So much, by the way, that if you go to Pooler, which is a suburb of Savannah, people act like you moved to New York City. Oh, that's why I'm out in Pooler. I'm like, there's nothing out in Pooler. Nothing but a bunch of commercial things. If you want to find the national chain restaurant, go to Pooler. It's there. Any national chain restaurant, it's there in Pooler. There's an outlet in Pooler. That should tell you everything you need to know. There's an outlet there. There's no culture in Pooler. There's no originality in Pooler. That is in Savannah. But it tells you all of the cities that have grown, right, around Savannah speaks to where people have moved to separate themselves. Effingham County was a nothing county, and then all of a sudden it got bigger and bigger and bigger. Why? Because people were moving from Savannah to Effingham to get away from the element. What element is that? Black people. I don't have to make these things up, ladies and gentlemen. You can just look in the books. That's where I find them at. It's amazing how much information you find in a book when you just read. When you find in a newspaper, if you just read. That is what Georgia on a large scale is like. You have the cities that are really integrated. You see a lot of mingling, black people, white people, Asian people, everything. But as soon as you step outside of those cities, it is segregated. And it might not be segregated on purpose. Like there's no laws out there. There's just a we don't rock with them and we don't rock with them. And that is throughout Georgia. And when you start adding up all of those we don't rock with them counties, a lot of those people are voting Republican. And that's why Georgia has told that line for so long. So for a Democrat to break through and get this, you know, this election won is something. But the fact that it was that close, that people were really ready to call this man Senator Herschel Walker, is sickening. You wanted to win that bad? You wanted to win that bad that you were going to put that man in charge. That says a lot about you as a people. And it speaks to what is the gift and the curse of the Republican Party. They'll do anything to win. And when you'll do anything to win, it makes your character questionable. The Democratic Party has a ton of issues. They got a lot of stuff. But the one thing I will say for the Democratic Party is that they try to put the best candidate forward. They try to put the best candidate forward. Now, I will say that I think that the reason that Joe Biden is president is because they didn't put the best candidate forward. They went with a candidate they thought could win. And unfortunately, right, there have been some mishaps. But there's mishaps in every presidency, right? There's mishaps in every presidency. But for the most part, the Democratic Party has tried to put people in place to elect that are competent, that have the people's first. It's not just about winning and maintaining power. It's a sickening feeling to know that I could have woke up this morning and Herschel Walker would have been my senatorial representative. Like, it was close. Even in the runoff, it was still close. And I just can't understand why. You know what else I can't understand? I'll never understand how a sport that is so heavily, that is so rife, so inundated with black players, how that sport could have so few representatives that are black at the head coach level, at the highest level. We talk about it in the NFL all the time, but rarely do about it in college. So when Coach Prime took over the job at Colorado, he didn't represent one more black man at the FBS level as a head coach. He represented replacing black men who had either lost their jobs or resigned from their jobs at the FBS level. Remember, this year we lost David Shaw, who was the head coach at Stanford for double-digit years, maybe 10, 11 years. We lost Willie Taggart, who was the head coach at Florida Atlantic over the last 3 years, I believe. He was fired. Shaw resigned. Now Taggart has joined Coach Prime on his staff at Colorado. That's a great job by Coach Prime to bring in not only a guy with FBS, Power 5, Pac-12 head coaching experience, but to bring in a guy who is a dynamic recruiter. That matters. But when we look at the landscape of black head coaches at the FBS level, it is bleak. It is bleak, to say the least, by the way. I'm going to read for you the list. I'm going to read for you the list of black head coaches at the FBS level. One is Deion Sanders. Dino Babers is the head coach at Syracuse. James Franklin at Penn State. I know, right? Did you know James Franklin was black? Like, I knew, but when I first found out years ago, I didn't know. And guess what? James Franklin ain't really trying to tell people either. That's a whole nother story. Mike Loxley at Maryland. Thomas Hammock at Northern Illinois. Jay Norvell at Colorado State. Charles Huff at Marshall. Stan Drayton at Temple. Tony Elliott at Virginia. Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. Maurice Lindquist at Buffalo. That is it. 11 black head coaches. 11 black head coaches. You want to know how many FBS teams there are? There are 131 FBS schools. There are 131 schools in the country that compete at the FBS level. That's the top level. There are 11 black head coaches. That's not even 10%. That's not even 10%. It's not even close to 10%. 11 out of 131? Are you kidding me? Coach Prime has a new fight. So, yes, he left Jackson State. That's awful. But we have another issue. The other issue is we don't have an adequate representation at the top level, at the head coach position, to represent the players that are on the field. Coach Prime said a really cool thing in his press conference. He said, just because I left HBCUs, I didn't leave being black. Wakes up every day, he looks in the mirror. Guess what? He's still black. When he walks out on the field of any Division I FBS program, the predominance of the players on that team are going to be black. Every single FBS program out there, the majority of the players are most likely going to be black. And yet the representation for them does not match. So now Coach Prime to me, is charged with he's not only charged with doing a good job at Colorado, his coaching tree has to be black. The guys that are on his staff, he needs to employ black men on his staff. Why? Because he has so much light shined on him that when Colorado has success, they need to start plucking guys off his staff to go and be head coaches at other programs, like they do off Nick Saban's, like they do off Kirby Smart's, like they do off of Dabo Swinney. Like all of these coaches that have success, their assistant coaches get pulled. Oregon had success this year. Offensive coordinator pulled. He's now at Arizona State. 32 years old, never played college ball. 32 years old, never played college ball. Just Forrest Gumped his way to the top in less than 10 years of graduating from college. Or right at 10 years, he went from college graduate to head coach at a Power 5 school with no football experience. The game ain't the same for all of us. It's a new fight out there. And Coach Prime, unfortunately, he's waved the flag. He's got to wave another flag. Because I don't see anybody pulling off James Franklin's tree. Because when I look at his assistant coaches, they don't look like me. So he's not advancing the cause. For as good a job as David Shaw did at Stanford, he didn't advance the cause. Hell, I don't even know if they knew this was a cause, but it is. Representation matters. Representation matters. And until we start seeing requisite numbers of equality at that level, it'll just keep on being boundied around. I, for one, think he has an opportunity to do even bigger things, that he has an opportunity to affect an even larger number. People won't agree. I get it. It's cool. We don't all have to agree on everything. That's such a misconception. But what we can agree on is that 11 coaches out of 131 is ridiculously low. Right? It's ridiculously low. There's only 32 jobs in the NFL. There's only a handful of black coaches in the NFL. And we all will readily say, man, we need more representation. 131? Come on, people. We can do better than that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Do this thing a few times a week. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree. But whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. And if you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Until next time, peace.